So the Battlefield 6 event reveal has came and gone. All of the lucky little content creators, press, all that stuff has been sherpered back home or whatever. They got to go back to their little hidey holes to give us all the juicy details about Battlefield 6. And I've taken some time to read a couple articles, watch a couple YouTube videos from a lot of creators, a lot of outlets and stuff like that, just to get a sort of, dare I say, general consensus of what's, you know, general consensus of how they're feeling about Battlefield 6, you know, at least before the masses get their hands on it to a certain degree for the beta literally this weekend. And there's a lot of good convos here to talk about, so I wanted to talk about a few things, mainly keep it kind of like a pro-con scenario. We'll dive into a couple of little tangents and things like that. It's a yapping video, so, you know, let's talk about it. I want to talk about the pros first, just because I feel like the cons will have a lot more juice sauce to get into, dare I say. First and foremost, starting off first, I want to start off again by saying the confidence is like so high, bro. And I said this in my last video, not only confidence in like the community from like the people who've played it so far and they're saying like pretty good things about it, but the confidence from like Battlefield Studios / EA, bro. Not only are we like, we have a release date, right? We've had people playing the game literally since like end of last year or something like that, right? A lot of like footage on the game. There's a lot of like, there's no smoke and mirrors, there's no substitution jutsus going on, there's no like carrot over here, but like all the actual stuff's over here. Like, we're seeing the product and the company is backing the product hard, and I think that just goes to show how much value they have, belief they have in the product, which is always a good sign, you know. Even if it's a scenario where it's like the game isn't that great, the fact that we're showing it, we're getting our hands on it this early, and we've seen it this often, great. Does wonders for morale, does wonders for confidence again. It's great, you know. And again, just to kind of throw it back into formation, like, we had a reveal event pretty much at the end of last week, and then we're going into this weekend of like an open beta. There's no closed beta, there's no closed alpha, pre-alpha, invite codes only, yada yada. It's an open beta. Yeah, you can get in by like Twitch drops and something else like a day or two early, but after that is open beta. And then we got another open beta the weekend after, and then it's literally like 2 or 3 weeks and then the game is out. That timeline is short. So if it was a game that they was bullshitting on, this would not be happening. We've all been around the block a couple times at this point for a game that's like been a dumpster fire. This is not what happens. We don't see it this early. We don't get to play it this early. We usually like are waiting until the day of, the day of, and then whatever happens. This is not the case. So that is definitely one thing that I will give props to. The confidence does a lot. But what also I've seen as like a general consensus pro, and I'm kind of clumping these two together, but I'll give it like gameplay feel and like visuals, atmosphere, fucking atmosphere, right? Pretty across the board, the atmosphere is there. It's got that like Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 aesthetic vibe down, at least multiplayer wise, which I think is the most important part. It's there. I've heard a lot of people talk about how like the sound design is probably one of the best it's been in like franchise history, which is it's just great to hear, right? Visuals look great. This is also like map visuals, but also like, you know, character visuals, vehicle lighting, all that, like all that stuff that kind of encompasses like what the fuck you'll be looking at for anywhere from an hour to 12 hours a session. All that stuff across the board so far, thumbs up, sometimes 2 thumbs up, which I think is absolutely fire, you know, especially given the whole like Battlefield not feeling like Battlefield. It might, you know, is this going to be an actual Battlefield game, sort of like talks that I've been seeing going around before we like saw all this. You know, it's nice to see that we actually got something that is dare I say on brand. On brand. And that also goes for the maps as well, which this one is, I'm kind of saving that for a little later down the line, but I kind of have a little bit I want to talk about that on. But an overall vibe, atmosphere, feel, sound, all that stuff across the board, good. Gunshots, explosions, all that stuff, ambient noise, everything. I think even when I was watching the like the reveal and some of the like gameplay stuff, hearing like the soldier dialogue, that was like a big one for me, bro. Especially from that like Battlefield, I'd say Bad Company 2 to Battlefield 4 era, the soldier dialogue from like the screams, the like random battle chatter, all kinds of stuff. I lived for that type of stuff. So to hear that kind of come back and to hear, I think even like some stuff be reused, absolutely fuego. Another thing that I want to talk about too that's like really a pro, and this will kind of be a bridge to the con slash gray areas for me, right? The introduction of Portal 2.0, I'd say we're gonna start there first. The introduction of Portal 2.0. I think if this like even remotely lands close to where they're like advertising it to be, we might have a whole new era of like Battlefield really on our hands. Like 2042 Portal was cool, you know. It was, you know, for what it was, I appreciated it, right? That lets you do a good amount. Now this one is pretty much, and I saw this in my last video, but it's pretty much looking like a little step up from like Halo Forge, and like a little bit step down to like you're actually making the fucking maps. Queue up Unreal, queue up Blender, you're making the maps, right? It seems like we'll be able to do a lot from this, and if that is the case, if this like tool is actually really good to use, I've seen like some conversation floating around like what the engine is and stuff like that. I'm not really big into all that. I'm not gonna talk about that because I just don't know, right? But from the outside looking in, and from someone who's probably gonna be checking out some of these creations and stuff like that, if it's anywhere remotely close to how they're advertising it, we're pretty much gonna create a whole new subsect of Battlefield fans, which I'd say all in all is an overall bonus to 2040 and whoa, Battlefield 6, right? And this leads me into my like last sort of pro, and then going into like the con gray area, right? So obviously we have like the main multiplayer mode, right? The main 32v32 all the way down to 16, like big mode, small mode stuff, right? We've got a campaign, which we haven't seen in a while, Battle Royale, and Portal 2.0. These are like 4 honestly core features of a game, right? Which all of these can spawn their own sort of like a little subsect of a Battlefield community, which I think that'll do a lot for the longevity and the overall like breadth of the community as a whole. I mean, Battlefield has always sort of been big, but it's always also been like in its own like little pocket, you know? I would love to see it sort of take on little lives of its own, kind of giving me like little remnants of how Halo is, or was at least back in the day, where it's like you have like your official Halo stuff, where it's like Bungie or 343 or now Halo Studios will like throw up their thing. This is their thing. But then they'll also give these like little things like Forge, custom games, you know, all these things where they can pretty much take on a life of their own with no real like official support needed to be had there on a continuous basis, unless like something breaks or whatever like that, right? Which then as time goes on forms like its own like little sub pocket, sub community for the franchise, right? Which the way that I'm envisioning it, which you might call me a super optimist or whatever, we could get to a point where it's like 2 years, 3 years, 5, 10 years down the line, Portal is so good, bro. Like people just get on Battlefield just to make shit in Portal and then get off. They don't even like really play the game, right? That's just what they do. They'll spend hours in the Portal customization thing and like just cook up the most outrageous shit ever, right? And that just takes on a life of its own. Or like you'll have people who use those Portal modes and make their own like little custom things. They don't even play official game modes, they just do their own little thing. Or someone from like somebody played the campaign and they got so enveloped with like the story and the lore and the world of like whatever's happening in Battlefield 6 that they go on and make their own like little fan projects or like spin-offs or like, you know, just like fanfics or whatever. And like the biggest one outside of like, again, that main multiplayer section, the Battle Royale. The Battle Royale could go on to become like a war zone, or like an Apex or something, or like a Fortnite, right? Because again, even going back to Fortnite, Save the World was supposed to be like the thing. But then I was like, you know what? Let's throw in the Battle Royale, see what's happening. And that became the thing. Some people might have some choice words to say about that, but just hear me out, right? All I'm saying is it adds to the function of Battlefield getting more growth and more support, which at the end of the day will always be good to a degree, right? It leads to more players, it leads to more growth, leads to more money. You know, we're talking about an EA IP right here. They need bread. Even though they got FIFA and Madden and shit, like, they need bread. They want bread. The war machine will keep turning, right? And if Battlefield becomes a top hitter because everybody and their grandmother want to play Firestorm or the BR, whatever the fuck it's called, hey, that's only going to be good for pretty much everybody else because it's going to get more support and more stuff, right? And I'm saying all this to say, like, it's been really good to see the sort of diversity of, at least in this initial case, of like the content creators and press. We've seen a lot of different people there, bro. A lot of people who like never even played Battlefield before. Like, this is like their first sort of introduction to the franchise. It's been really interesting to see like the takes and the feedback that some of these like other people who are outside of the Battlefield community will give. And I've seen some sort of criticisms on that as well. Like, I know you being on the internet, people can get real tribey, real campy, you know, like, this is our thing, stay over there type scenario, which again, to a certain degree, I gotta agree with. To a certain degree, you gotta gatekeep some shit, but also you can't be too closed off. You get too in your own bubble. That's how you become like a Call of Duty or some shit. You got nobody that you're listening to and you're kind of just doing your own thing. And then now it's like the snake eating its own tail because you just aren't taking in any other feedback or like perspectives that aren't your own. People who aren't like relatively like hardcore Battlefield people give their like general feedback and, dare I say, ideas of what they could see to make the game better. I think that's been really interesting, and it also provides some interesting sort of caveats and viewpoints to have for what Battlefield is or what it should become, right? And this goes into like some of the like cons and like gray area stuff that I was talking about, because again, you're now getting viewpoints from people who haven't been playing since Battlefield 2 or like Bad Company 2 or Battlefield 3, right? Like, maybe their first Battlefield was Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 5 or even like the Battlefield 6 showcase, you know, that was like their first intro. So they're coming at it with like a fresh pair of eyes that, you know, might not necessarily be on the same sort of page that someone who is an OG is on, you know what I'm saying? And it's mainly been like Call of Duty people that I've been seeing talk about this, and I'm not calling anybody out or anything like that, but just been what I've been seeing, right? And I think an interesting point for this is coming from that perspective of like what they usually look for in a game. It's kind of offered by Battlefield, but also isn't. And I think the general consensus across the board is like, that's a good thing because Battlefield should be its own identity. It should have its own DNA, and it shouldn't attempt to do anything else, which is where I feel like a lot of games fuck up. Again, as someone like me, I come from that like Halo 3, Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, like Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 2, World of War era. So like that was my kind of like big three at the time, and I experienced pretty much all of them, and they all bring something to the table. I would still consider myself really a Halo guy at the end of the day. That's like my bread and butter franchise. And even for someone like me, there's a lot there that like I could see as like a Halo person, but I appreciate as a Battlefield person because it sticks to its guns. It doesn't need to do what the next game is doing to succeed because they play their own lane very well, and they don't have to necessarily cheat off of the next person to get the leg up, you know. They just really need to refine what they're doing to give that experience that the core fan base that they built over the years are looking for, right? You don't have a franchise that lasts this long by not doing your own shit well. You know, if you just copy Call of Duty all day long, you just gonna get beat out by Call of Duty. If you copy Halo all day long, you're gonna get beat up by Halo, and so on and so forth. And I think I've seen a lot of the concerns come from like obviously weapon balance and things like that. That's an easy fix. Weapon, I mean, that's going to be a constant thing for sure. Like the not say little shit, but like the usual shooter game shit where it's like, this is broken, fix this, or like the audio's too loud, fix it, you know. Outside of that, I think the main concern that I've been seeing lies within like map game type combination, which this is where it kind of gives me like mixed feelings, again, because I told you I come from, I'd say primarily a Halo background, but I played a lot of Battlefield, I played a lot of COD, right? Watching a lot of the creators at the reveal event, a lot of people are super privy to the 32v32 big boy modes, Conquest, Rush, Breakthrough, right? Which Battlefield staple, I ain't arguing that, right? I love the big boy modes, you know, jets, tanks, all that stuff. Which, small note, where the fuck are the boats? Where the boats? We need boat stuff. I missed the boat shit. The boat shit was awesome. But I've been seeing a lot of flack be given towards like the smaller game mode stuff, the small map stuff, which I've seen two sort of camps in the constructive feedback or con, essentially. What I wanted to talk about for like the map design first, I feel like for that like 64 player scenario, they got it pretty much down. There's going to be some maps that have like a better sort of system than others. They definitely was fucking it up with the 128 stuff. That was just way too much, way too many. I'm glad they kind of took a step away from that. As someone who is privy to the smaller modes, the team deathmatch, squad deathmatch, domination, stuff like that, I've seen a lot of talk about how some of the bigger modes being sort of put in like a smaller map pocket, like it's not like as grand, kind of influences that a little too much, which I can agree with in a sense that it's like it's kind of like a two-pronged discussion, right? Where it's like if you're playing like a 64 Conquest and you're playing on, there's a couple of the maps and like the pool that was played that like run smaller overall, which can kind of have things feeling a little suffocated or like choky, which isn't really a great feel for like the 64v6. I keep saying 64v64, 32v32, like Conquest, Rush, Breakthrough. And then also on top of that, with their sort of philosophy on breaking those bigger maps down into smaller maps to fit like a domination, to fit a TDM, a squad deathmatch, they don't have the same sort of flow that you would come to expect from like a Call of Duty TDM or like a Halo Slayer, or even like a Call of Duty Halo Big Team Battle ground war style mode. With those, it's like the flow doesn't fit for what these people are looking for, which, given how Battlefield is operating, again, you should really stick to your guns. As much as I love TDM, I love squad deathmatch, I love domination, I think they should really focus on having the bigger maps sort of have that flow and that design philosophy set in point first. You're not gonna really nail a Call of Duty 3-lane map style or like a Call of Duty map style of like that smaller portion. They just have so much time to refine that experience that it won't really necessarily fit the Battlefield DNA, right? And same for like a Halo scenario where it's like a map that's like made to fit 8 people. It's going to be super symmetrical. Even if it's asymmetrical, it's still going to have those sections where it's like, hey, I'm covering this lane, I might get flanked here, or I played this map so much, I already know where this person's going to be at before they even get there, just because that's how it is. I'm thinking of like Halo the Pit, Call of Duty Nuketown, you know, like, you know all the lanes, you know where everybody's going to be at. You can't really get that on like a Battlefield small map mode, especially if you're shrinking that down from a map that's supposed to have like 30 different areas of engagement, let alone you got motherfuckers blowing through walls now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's great to have those like small CQB areas. It's different when you have to fit a whole map around it, you know? You could see on the grandiose scale, the flow is there, you know? It's easy for tanks to move through. It's easy for 2, 3, 4 squads to move through at once. Yeah, you could have these like little pocket engagements of like a squad versus squad or like a player versus player, but consistently, it just doesn't really nail it, right? And I think in that scenario, it'll be, I don't want the like overall game to suffer because of them necessarily trying to cater to like having those quick, snappy CQB engagements. It's good to have infantry focused stuff. I don't want the overall experience to suffer from that. And that's kind of what I've been seeing be talked about a little bit, at least when it comes to map design. And again, this is someone that I love the small map stuff. I love domination. I love team deathmatch, especially coming from like that Battlefield 3 close quarters DLC era. Like when the maps are built for it, it's so different. It's so different when the maps are built for it versus like, oh yeah, we just took a small chunk of Caspian border and there you go, team deathmatch. It just don't work the same. It don't work the same. And I guess that's really, long story short, that's what I'm getting at, right? It's like Battlefield, DICE, EA, they're really good at like those big grandiose maps. And unless the maps are really specifically designed for like those small portions, it's just gonna not feel as good, you know. And I think it's good to have it there regardless, you know. I'm always gonna be privy to have a team deathmatch, have a squad deathmatch, all that type of stuff, especially because sometimes you just do not need, sometimes you want to play Battlefield, you don't want to get blown up by a fucking tank or a jet, you know. Sometimes you don't want it, so you know, jump in the team deathmatch for a little bit, and then when you're ready, there you go, you know. Conquest is there, rush is there, breakthrough is there, but you know, having that other option I think is always going to be beneficial. And then I also think the last big kind of con that I saw was like the whole weapon class sort of identity crisis scenario where it's like open versus closed. I don't know, dude. That's, if you're gonna ask me, I don't know. That's a hard one, bro. A lot of the OGs are privy to that, like Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, have it locked behind something, make each class feel like really unique, which I say I'm a little more privy to, but I can also appreciate them like opening it up and then being like, hey, you know, if you want to be a recon class but you want to use an AR, you can, but if you don't use a sniper, you're not going to get the extra bonuses, you know. I can also appreciate that, so I'm not gonna lie. Hey, if I'm DICE, if I'm Battlefield Studios, good luck with that one, bro. I feel like either way you go, a lot of motherfuckers gonna be mad. If you really ask me though, if I had to choose, I don't know, because like on one hand you fall into a portion of like, well, if I lock assault rifles to like the assault class and one of these bitches are busted, everybody's just gonna run assault. But then also it's like, not really, because a lot of you gotta make it so like the classes have a way to stand on their own but also be important for everybody to use. I think that's where it's really gonna lie. Yeah, you can have a broken ass weapon, but if you can't heal yourself or you can't give yourself ammo, then you gotta rely on the support guy. Or you can have a broken, you can heal yourself all day, but if you can't kill the tank, well, you gotta have the engineer. So I think they really need to find a way to balance like having the class stand on its own and be like unique, but also not too overpowered to where it's like I don't need anybody else, which they kind of dove into a little bit too much in 2042, where it's like, hey bro, I'm an assault Clyde and I can heal myself and I have way too much fucking ammo, so why do I need the medic or the support or the recon? It's like, if I actually think about it, I feel like the way they're gonna go, unless there's like super big community pushback, I feel like they're gonna go the way of, they're gonna leave it open and have those like specializations on. I think that's what they're gonna probably end up leaving as the like main go-to, and then probably on like a rotational playlist or something they'll have like classic Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 locked weapons. Maybe that's how I see it. I could be wrong. I'm just guessing here, but again, across the board, really mostly good. You know, it's strong. Everybody's in good spirits. There's a couple things where it's like, you know, this could be kind of trash, but it's all right for right now. I'm very interested to see how the conversation evolves or changes once like the masses get their hands on it. That's like next week, a couple days, you know what I'm saying? Before I know it, the beta could come out and everybody's like, yo, these little maps are awesome, give us more little maps, or like these little maps fucking suck, no more of those. I don't know. It could go any way, especially seeing that they're trying to do a lot to kind of bring in a bunch of different like people. They're trying to take from a lot of different places, again with the portal stuff I talked about earlier, with the campaign stuff, the battle royale stuff. they're trying to bring in a lot of folks, bro. That's a lot of different people they're speaking to. And again, even talking to like if you're a Conquest head or Rush head, OG classic Battlefield person, or if you're like a classic Call of Duty head or a classic Halo head where you used to like them smaller arena style joints, and you're like, yo, Conquest is cool, bro, but I'll play TDM all day long. I'll play Domination all day long. King of the Hill on Battlefield? What the fuck? What the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot happening there. So I'm very interested to see where it goes. Either way, I think it's been really good to see that at least right now, everything is pointing up. The draft stock is up. I don't know. I'm very interested to see what's happening. But y'all let me know what's happening in the comments down below. Let me know what you're thinking, how you're feeling about stuff. Talk to your boy. And until then, I'll catch all y'all in the next one.